The Thanksgiving table was set for 12, but the real gathering was happening in Grandma's study. My sister Vanessa stood at the head of the antique desk, holding what she claimed was the official will. According to family tradition and this document, Vanessa declared, her voice carrying that edge of superiority I'd heard my entire life, everything goes to the firstborn daughter. The estate, the house, the investment accounts. All of it. Madison gets nothing. Mom nodded from her seat by the window, dabbing her eyes with a handkerchief. It's what Mother would have wanted. Vanessa has always been the responsible one. My Aunt Carol shifted uncomfortably. Shouldn't we wait for the actual lawyer too? I am a lawyer, Vanessa snapped. She was corporate counsel at a mid-sized firm in Boston, and she never let anyone forget it. I know how to read a will. It's very clear. As the eldest daughter, I inherit the primary estate. There's a small provision for Madison, maybe $50,000 or so, but the $3.2 million estate is mine. I sat quietly at the edge of the room, my hands folded in my lap. I'd driven 6 hours from D.C. for this Thanksgiving, knowing this moment was coming. I'd prepared for it for 5 years. Well, Vanessa turned to me, her expression a mix of triumph and pity. Aren't you going to argue? Make a scene? Cry about how unfair it is? I smiled and reached into my bag. Actually, I brought something to share first. I slid a navy blue folder across the desk. It landed with a soft thud directly in front of Vanessa. What's this? She asked, not touching it. Open it, I said calmly. Before she could, the study door opened. A man in his 60s entered, carrying a leather briefcase. He had silver hair and wore an impeccable charcoal suit. I apologize for being late, he said. Holiday traffic was worse than expected. I'm Robert Hastings, the estate attorney who prepared Eleanor Morrison's actual trust documents. Vanessa's confident expression flickered. I have the will right here. That will, Robert said, setting his briefcase down and opening it with practiced precision, was superseded by irrevocable trust transfers executed in February 2019. Which, if I'm not mistaken, is exactly what Ms. Morrison has in that folder she just gave you. Vanessa opened the folder. Her hands started shaking. These are dated. She looked up at me, her face going completely white. February 2019. 2 weeks before Grandma's stroke, I confirmed. Mom stood up. What are you talking about? What transfers? Robert Hastings pulled out his own set of documents. Mrs. Morrison, your mother executed a series of irrevocable trust transfers that moved virtually all assets out of her estate and directly into your younger daughter's name. The house, the investment portfolio, the rental property in Vermont. All of it. That's impossible, Vanessa whispered. It's public record, I said quietly. Filed with the county, registered with the IRS, completely legal and binding. Grandma transferred everything to me 5 years ago. There is no estate to inherit, Vanessa. Because it's already mine. The room fell absolutely silent. Vanessa's face went from white to red. You manipulated her. You convinced a dying woman to. Your grandmother was in perfect health when these documents were executed, Robert interrupted firmly. She was evaluated by 2 independent physicians who certified her mental competency specifically for this purpose. She knew exactly what she was doing. Why? Mom's voice cracked. Why would Mother do this? I looked at Robert. He nodded, giving me permission. Because, I said, Grandma knew exactly who Vanessa really was. And she wanted to protect what she'd built from being destroyed. Growing up, Vanessa was perfect. 5 years older than me, she was everything my family valued. Confident, assertive, academically brilliant, socially successful. She was student body president, varsity volleyball captain, valedictorian. He went to Columbia for undergrad, then Harvard Law. I was the quiet one. The bookish younger sister who preferred reading to parties, who studied environmental science instead of something practical, who chose a job with the National Park Service over corporate careers. Madison is just different, Mom would explain to relatives, her tone suggesting this was a character flaw. But Grandma Eleanor saw something else. Starting when I was 15, Grandma began inviting me to her house every Sunday afternoon. We'd have tea on her back porch overlooking Lake Champlain and talk about everything. Books, nature, life, money. Your sister thinks money is about status, Grandma told me once. She wants to show it off, use it to prove she's successful. But real wealth is about security and freedom. It's about building something that lasts. Grandma had built that lasting wealth herself. Widowed young, she'd taken her husband's $50,000 life insurance payout in 1972 and invested it in real estate. Over 40 years, she'd built a portfolio worth over $3 million. The family house in Burlington, Vermont, now worth $800,000, a commercial rental property, $600,000, and a carefully managed investment portfolio, $1.8 million. "I'm leaving everything in a trust," she told me when I was 17. "Your mother will have access to income from it, but the principal will be preserved for you girls." I assumed you girls meant Vanessa would get the majority. She was the eldest, the successful one, the golden child. But during my college years something changed. Vanessa graduated law school in 2014 and immediately started making serious money. $120,000 starting salary, climbing to $180,000 within 3 years. She bought a luxury condo in Boston, drove a BMW, wore designer clothes. And she started treating Grandma like a bank. "I need $20,000 for furniture," she'd say. "Just a loan, Grandma. I'll pay you back." He never did. My condo fees went up. "Can you cover the difference for a few months?" Months became years. "I'm investing in a colleague's startup. I need $50,000. "This is a sure thing, Grandma." The startup failed within 6 months. By 2018, Grandma confided in me that Vanessa had borrowed over $140,000 and never repaid a cent. "She makes more than I ever did," Grandma said, frustrated, "but she spends like money has no meaning." I was 23, working for the National Park Service in Washington, D.C., making $48,000 a year. I lived modestly, sent Grandma cards, called her weekly, visited monthly when I could. "You remind me of myself at your age," Grandma told me during one visit. "You understand that security matters more than status." Then came the conversation that changed everything. It was February 2019. Grandma was 78, healthy, sharp as ever. She called me and asked me to come to Vermont. "It's important," she said. I took 2 days off work and drove up. In her kitchen she laid out her plan. "I'm transferring everything to you," she said simply. "The house, the rental property, the investment accounts. All of it. Through irrevocable trusts. You'll be the sole beneficiary." I stared at her, speechless. "Vanessa has shown me who she is," Grandma continued. "She's brilliant and successful, but she has no financial discipline. She'd burn through this estate in 5 years. Sell the house, cash out the investments, spend it all on maintaining an image." "But I'm the younger daughter," I protested. "The family will. The family will adjust," she said firmly. "This is my money, Madison. I built it. I get to decide what happens to it. And I'm deciding it goes to someone who will protect it, not squander it." "What about Mom?" "Your mother will be fine. She has her own retirement accounts and your father's life insurance. This isn't about punishing anyone. It's about preserving what I built for someone who values what it represents." We met with Robert Hastings, her estate attorney, the following week. He explained the process. Irrevocable trusts that would transfer ownership immediately, removing assets from Grandma's estate, protected from probate or challenge. "This is irreversible," he warned. "Once these documents are executed, Eleanor no longer owns these assets. Madison does." "I understand," Grandma said. "That's exactly what I want." We signed everything on February 14, 2019. Valentine's Day. Grandma laughed about the date. "The day I'm giving my heart to you," she said, "in the form of financial security." 2 weeks later, Grandma had a stroke. It was mild, she recovered fully within 3 months, but it was a warning. Her health was fragile. "Thank God we did the transfers when we did," Robert told me privately. "If we'd waited, any transfers after the stroke could have been challenged as made under diminished capacity." For the next 5 years I kept the secret. Grandma was clear, "Don't tell them yet. Let's see how things develop." I watched from a distance as Vanessa's spending escalated. A $80,000 engagement ring for herself when she got engaged in 2020. A $40,000 wedding when she married in 2021. Tesla. Designer handbags. A second condo in Cape Cod as a vacation property. All while making $200,000 plus annually. And all while continuing to ask Grandma for money. Just $10,000 to cover wedding costs. Can you help with the Cape Cod down payment? My student loans are crushing me. Can you pay them off? Grandma, whose assets were now legally mine, stopped giving Vanessa money after the transfers. I can't afford it anymore, she'd say, which was technically true. She no longer owned the assets to access. Vanessa would complain to Mom. Grandma's gotten so stingy. She has millions and won't help her own granddaughter. I said nothing. Just watched. Documented. Waited. Meanwhile, I lived my quiet life. My Park Service salary grew to $67,000 by 2024. I maintained the Vermont rental property remotely, collecting $3,200 monthly in rent. The investment portfolio, managed conservatively, grew from $1.8 million to $2.4 million. The total estate value, approximately $3.8 million by November 2024. And nobody in my family knew it was mine. Grandma passed away in October 2024, peacefully in her sleep at 83. At the funeral, Vanessa played the grieving granddaughter beautifully, talking about Grandma's legacy and preserving her wishes. 2 weeks later, she called a family meeting for Thanksgiving. We need to discuss the estate distribution, she said in the family group chat. As the eldest, I've reviewed the documents and I think everyone should understand how this works. I smiled when I read that message. She had no idea what was coming. For 5 years, I managed an estate that nobody knew I owned. The rental property in Burlington was a commercial building with 3 units. I kept it maintained, raised rents appropriately with market rates, handled tenant issues professionally. The monthly income grew from $2,800 to $3,200. The investment portfolio I managed conservatively. I diversified it, rebalanced quarterly, avoided risky plays. Steady growth, 7 to 8% annually. From $1.8 million to $2.4 million. The family house needed work. New roof in 2020, $22,000. HVAC system in 2022, $15,000. Updated electrical, $18,000. I paid for everything out of the estate accounts, which were legally mine to manage. Grandma lived in the house until she died rent-free, exactly as we'd planned. You're taking such good care of everything, she'd tell me during our weekly calls. It's my responsibility now, I'd say. To my family, I was still just Madison. Park Service employee, making decent but unremarkable money, living in a small apartment in Alexandria, Virginia, driving a sensible Honda Civic. They had no idea I was a millionaire. That I owned prime real estate. That I managed a portfolio larger than most people would ever see. Vanessa, meanwhile, lived her flashy life. Instagram posts from expensive restaurants. Vacation photos from Tuscany, Bali, the Maldives. Designer everything. Living my best life, her posts would say. On borrowed money, I thought. Because I knew her salary. $210,000 by 2024. Good money. But not buy 2 condos, drive a Tesla, vacation internationally 3 times a year money. He was in debt. Serious debt. I could tell from the few things she let slip during family calls. Credit cards are insane right now. My financial advisor says I'm over-leveraged. I need to cut back. But she never did. And now she thought she was inheriting $3.2 million. I consulted with Robert Hastings regularly. Everything is airtight, he assured me. The trusts are irrevocable, properly executed, filed correctly. There's no legal challenge Vanessa could mount. What about moral challenges? I asked. The family will say I manipulated Grandma. Let them say it, Robert replied. I have 2 independent physician evaluations certifying your grandmother's mental competency. I have detailed notes from our meetings showing she initiated this plan. I have documentation that she'd been financially supporting Vanessa for years and deliberately chose to stop. This was her decision, Madison. Fully informed, completely voluntary. I also hired a financial investigator, quietly, discreetly, to document Vanessa's spending. Not to use against her maliciously but to understand the full picture. The report was damning. Vanessa had $280,000 in credit card debt. Her student loans, which she claimed to be paying off, were actually in forbearance. She was leveraged on both condos. Mortgages totaling $950,000 against properties worth maybe $1.1 million. She was financially drowning despite her huge salary. And she was counting on Grandma's estate to save her. When you inherit, her husband Derek had told me once at a family dinner, you should really invest it wisely. Maybe we can give you some advice. The presumption was stunning. I just smiled and changed the subject. My closest friend Sarah knew the truth. How do you stand it? She asked after one particularly brutal family gathering where Vanessa held court about real estate investment strategies. Because I'm not hiding, I told her. I'm just not advertising. There's a difference. When the time is right, they'll know. Until then, I'm protecting what Grandma built. That time came on Thanksgiving 2024. The family gathered at Mom's house in Connecticut for Thanksgiving. Vanessa and Derek flew in from Boston. My Aunt Carol drove up from Philadelphia with her husband Tom. Uncle Richard came from New York. Dinner was tense. Everyone knew we'd be discussing the estate afterward. Over dessert, Vanessa cleared her throat. I think we should address the elephant in the room. Grandma's will. Vanessa, Mom said uncomfortably, maybe this isn't the time. It's exactly the time, Vanessa interrupted. I'm a lawyer. I've reviewed the documents. I know everyone is curious and probably worried. So let me clarify how this works. She pulled out a folder. Not the real estate documents I'd later learn, but her own summary. According to Grandma's will, which was last updated in 2015, the estate goes primarily to the firstborn daughter. That's me. There's a provision for Madison, approximately $50,000, but the bulk of the estate, valued at approximately $3.2 million, passes to me as the eldest. Aunt Carol frowned. That seems unequal. It's traditional, Vanessa said smoothly. Primogeniture. Eldest child inherits the estate. It's how wealthy families have operated for centuries. It ensures the wealth stays concentrated and properly managed. Properly managed by you? I asked quietly. Vanessa turned to me, her expression patronizing. Madison, I know this might feel unfair. But you have to understand, managing an estate this size requires financial expertise, legal knowledge, investment understanding, skills that frankly you don't have. I work for the government, she continued. You make what, $60,000 a year? That's respectable, but it's not estate management level. I'm trying to protect you from making mistakes that could cost you everything. How generous, I said. I'm serious, Vanessa said. Look, the $50,000 you're getting is actually meaningful money for someone at your income level. You could pay off debt, take a nice vacation, pad your savings. Be grateful for it. Mom nodded. Vanessa has a point, honey. This is complicated financial stuff. I looked around the table. Aunt Carol looked uncomfortable. Uncle Richard was checking his phone. Derek, Vanessa's husband, smirked into his wine glass. Nobody was questioning Vanessa. Nobody was asking if maybe this seemed wrong. Nobody was defending me. Just like always. So it's settled then, Vanessa said. I'll work with the estate attorney to process everything. Madison, I'll make sure your $50,000 is transferred within a few months. There's probate to handle, accounts to settle, property to evaluate. Actually, I said, I think we should wait for the estate attorney to explain things. Vanessa laughed. Madison, I am a lawyer. I think I can read a will. Can you read trust documents? I asked. Her smile flickered. What trust documents? The irrevocable trust transfers from 2019. The room went silent. What are you talking about? Mom asked. I pulled out my phone and texted Robert Hastings. We're ready. I invited Grandma's actual estate attorney to join us, I said calmly. He's waiting in the living room. I thought he should be present for this conversation. Vanessa's face went pale. You did what? I invited the professional who actually prepared Grandma's estate documents. Since we're having this discussion, we should have accurate information. Don't you think? Before Vanessa could respond, Mom went to get Robert. Derek leaned toward Vanessa and whispered something. She shook her head sharply. When Robert Hastings entered the dining room, Vanessa stood up. I don't know what Madison told you, but the will is very clear. The will, Robert said calmly, is irrelevant. Please everyone sit down. This will take a few minutes to explain. Robert Hastings set his briefcase on the dining table and opened it with practiced efficiency. He pulled out a bound document about 40 pages thick. "I'm Robert Hastings. I was Eleanor Morrison's estate attorney for 15 years. I prepared her will in 2015, which is the document Vanessa has been referencing. However, that will was superseded by legal transfers executed in February 2019. "What transfers?" Vanessa demanded. "Irrevocable trust transfers," Robert said. In February 2019, Mrs. Morrison executed a series of legal documents that moved virtually all of her assets out of her personal estate and into irrevocable trusts, naming Madison as the sole beneficiary. He began laying out documents. The family home in Burlington, transferred via quitclaim deed to the Morrison Family Residence Trust, beneficiary Madison Morrison, executed February 14, 2019. Filed with Chittenden County Clerk, public record. Another document. The commercial rental property at 847 Church Street, Burlington, transferred to the Morrison Commercial Property Trust, beneficiary Madison Morrison, executed February 14, 2019. Filed with Chittenden County Clerk, public record. Another. Investment accounts with Fidelity totaling $1.8 million at the time of transfer. Moved to the Morrison Investment Trust, beneficiary Madison Morrison, executed February 14, 2019. Registered with the IRS, public record. Vanessa grabbed the documents. This can't be legal. Grandma had a stroke 2 weeks after these dates. Which is precisely why we executed them when we did, Robert said firmly. Mrs. Morrison understood her health was declining. She wanted to ensure her wishes were carried out while she was indisputably of sound mind. To prove competency, he continued, Mrs. Morrison underwent evaluation by 2 independent physicians immediately before signing. Both certified she was of sound mind, understood the documents she was signing, and was acting of her own free will. Those evaluations are part of the file. He handed copies to Vanessa. She read them, her hands shaking. "Why?" Mom whispered. "Why would Mother do this?" Robert looked at me. I nodded. Mrs. Morrison was very clear about her reasoning, Robert said. She felt that Madison had demonstrated financial responsibility and understanding that would preserve the estate's value. She was concerned that the estate would be rapidly depleted if it passed to someone with different financial habits. Vanessa's face went red. "Are you saying?" "I'm saying what Mrs. Morrison told me," Robert interrupted. "She built this estate over 40 years. She wanted it protected by someone who valued its long-term preservation over short-term spending." He pulled out another document. "This is a letter Mrs. Morrison wrote to be opened only after her death. She gave me permission to share it if there were questions about her reasoning." Robert began reading. "To my family, by the time you read this, I'll be gone. I want you to understand why I made the decisions I did. For years, I watched my granddaughters grow into very different women. Vanessa is brilliant, successful, and confident. Madison is steady, thoughtful, and careful. Both are wonderful in their own ways. But when it came to my life's work, this estate I built from nearly nothing, I had to make a choice. Not about who I loved more, but about who would protect what I built. Madison showed me she understands that wealth isn't about status or image. It's about security and freedom. She never asked me for money. She lived within her means. She made smart, careful choices. Vanessa, my darling, you are so talented. But you've never learned that money has limits. You've borrowed over $140,000 from me and never repaid it. You make more than I ever dreamed of making, yet you're always in need. This estate would be gone within 5 years if it went to you. I can't let that happen. So I chose Madison. Not because I don't love you, Vanessa, but because I trust her to preserve what I built. To use it wisely. To pass it on someday with the same care I'm showing now. I hope you can understand. And I hope you can finally learn that real success isn't about what you show the world. It's about what you build that lasts. All my love, Grandma." The silence was absolute. Vanessa's face was white as paper. Tears streamed down her cheeks. She wrote that? "Witnessed by myself and my paralegal," Robert confirmed. "Along with the independent physician evaluations, this demonstrates clearly that Mrs. Morrison was competent and that this was entirely her decision." "How much?" Derek asked suddenly. How much did she actually transfer? I answered before Robert could. At the time of transfer, $1.8 million in investments, the house valued at $750,000, and the rental property valued at $580,000. Total approximately $3.13 million. And now? Derek pressed. The investments have grown to approximately $2.4 million. The house is worth about $800,000. The rental property about $600,000. Total current value, approximately $3.8 million. Vanessa looked at me like she'd never seen me before. You've been managing this for 5 years? Yes. And you never said anything? Grandma asked me not to. She wanted to see how things developed. This is insane, Vanessa said. You manipulated an old woman. I have physician evaluations certifying competency, I said calmly. I have Robert's testimony about Grandma initiating this plan. I have her own letter explaining her reasoning. What I don't have is any evidence of manipulation. Because there wasn't any. I slid my own folder across the table. The one from the opening scene. What I do have, I continued, is documentation of every request you made to Grandma for money over 10 years. Every loan you never repaid. Every time you spent beyond your means and expected her to cover the difference. $143,600 total. None of it repaid. Vanessa opened the folder. Inside were copies of checks, bank transfers, emails, text messages. Grandma kept records, I said. Every penny you asked for. Every promise to pay her back. Every broken commitment. You're making me out to be some kind of villain, Vanessa said, her voice breaking. No, I said quietly. I'm just showing everyone what Grandma saw. The same pattern she saw. The reason she made the choice she did. The dining room erupted. Mom stood up. This is outrageous. Vanessa is the eldest. This violates every family tradition. What tradition? I asked. Grandma built this estate herself. It was hers to give to whoever she chose. She chose me. Because you poisoned her against Vanessa. Mom shouted. Mrs. Morrison, Robert interrupted firmly. I was present for every conversation Eleanor had about this decision. Madison was not involved in the planning phase. Eleanor made this choice independently, then informed Madison. There was no manipulation. Uncle Richard spoke up. But Madison was visiting her every week. That's undue influence. I visited Grandma because I loved her, I said. Because she was lonely after Grandpa died. Because we enjoyed each other's company. None of those visits involved discussing the estate until she'd already decided. Vanessa was staring at the folder of financial records, tears streaming down her face. You've been tracking my finances? That's psychotic. I didn't track anything, I corrected. Grandma tracked what you asked her for. I just compiled her records. Every check stub, every bank transfer confirmation, every email where you promised to pay her back. It's all in there. Derek grabbed the folder and started reading. His expression darkened. $20,000 for furniture. $15,000 for a car down payment. $50,000 for that startup investment. Jesus, Vanessa, you never told me about half of these. I was going to pay her back, Vanessa whispered. When? I asked. You make over $200,000 a year, Vanessa. You've made that or more for 7 years. That's over $1.4 million in gross income. Where did it all go? She said nothing. I can tell you where it went, I continued. 2 condos you can barely afford. Tesla. Designer everything. Vacations to Europe 3 times a year. An $80,000 engagement ring. A $40,000 wedding. You spent every penny you made and then borrowed from Grandma to cover the gaps. That's none of your business, Derek snapped. It became my business when Grandma made me the steward of her estate, I replied. When she trusted me to protect what she built. When she specifically told me she was afraid you'd burn through it all within 5 years. 5 years. Vanessa laughed bitterly. That's ridiculous. Is it? I pulled out another document. This is a financial analysis I had prepared. Based on your spending patterns from 2017 to 2024, if you'd inherited $3.2 million, here's what would have happened. I read from the report. Year 1. Pay off $280,000 in credit card debt, $150,000 in student loans. Remaining, $2.77 million. Year 2. Purchase additional vacation property $500,000. Luxury car upgrade $120,000. High-end renovations $200,000. Remaining, $1.95 million. Year 3. Stop, Vanessa whispered. The analysis shows the estate would be completely depleted within 6 years, I finished. Grandma's 40 years of careful building, gone in 6 years of spending. You don't know that, Mom said, but her voice was weak. I know Vanessa's track record, I said. I know what she's demonstrated. Grandma knew it too. That's why she made the choice she did. Aunt Carol spoke quietly. Madison, what are you going to do with the estate? Preserve it, I said immediately. The rental property generates income that I reinvest. The house I'll keep as a family property. Anyone can visit, use it for vacations, gatherings. The investments I'll grow conservatively. Eventually I'll probably set up trusts for future generations. Build something that lasts. While I get nothing? Vanessa demanded. You get what Grandma specified in her will, Robert said. There is a provision, $50,000 from her remaining personal accounts. That money passes to you. $50,000, Vanessa repeated. Out of almost $4 million. That's what she chose, I said. I'm sorry it hurts, but it was her choice to make. Vanessa stood up abruptly. This isn't over. I'm going to challenge this. Undue influence, diminished capacity, fraud. You can try, Robert said calmly. But I should warn you, I have extensive documentation. 2 independent physician evaluations. Detailed notes from our planning meetings. Your grandmother's personal letters explaining her reasoning. Public property records showing the transfers were properly filed. And I have Madison's financial records showing she's managed the estate responsibly for 5 years. What you don't have, he continued, is any evidence of wrongdoing. What you have is hurt feelings and disappointed expectations. Those aren't grounds for legal challenge. I'm still filing, Vanessa said. Then you should know something else, I said quietly. If you challenge this estate and lose, which you will, I'll countersue for legal fees. Which, given the estate's value, could easily run $50,000 to $100,000. You'd be spending your entire inheritance on lawyers, just to prove that Grandma made her own choice. Vanessa stared at me. You've really thought this through. For 5 years, I confirmed. Grandma prepared me for this. Told me you'd fight. Told me to stand firm. So I will. Derek stood up. We're leaving. Derek, Vanessa started. Now, he said. This is humiliating. And honestly, I need to understand why you never told me about $140,000 in loans from your grandmother. They left without another word. Mom was crying. How could you be so cruel to your own sister? I'm not being cruel, I said. I'm executing Grandma's wishes. Vanessa is hurt, I understand that. But Grandma had good reasons for her decision. Documented, witnessed, legally sound reasons. She's going to hate you forever, Aunt Carol said. Maybe, I acknowledged. But I'd rather have her hate me for doing the right thing than have her love me for betraying Grandma's trust. Uncle Richard stood up. I think we all need some time to process this. Agreed, Robert said, beginning to pack his documents. If anyone has questions about the legal aspects, I'm available. But I want to be clear. These trusts are irrevocable. They cannot be undone, challenged, or modified. Eleanor Morrison made her choice. It's final. As people began leaving, Mom approached me. Madison, please. Think about what this is doing to our family. I am thinking about family, I said. About Grandma's family. The legacy she built. The values she tried to teach us. Vanessa never learned those values. I did. That's why Grandma chose me. Your sister is going to be destroyed by this. No, I said firmly. Vanessa makes over $200,000 a year. She has a successful career, a husband, 2 properties, and $50,000 coming from Grandma's personal accounts. She'll be fine financially. She's just not going to be a millionaire overnight. That's not what I mean, Mom said. I mean emotionally, psychologically. This is telling her that her own grandmother didn't trust her. Her own grandmother didn't trust her, I said. And Vanessa earned that distrust by borrowing $140,000 and never repaying it. By spending recklessly despite a huge income. By treating grandma like an ATM. Those were Vanessa's choices, Mom. The consequences are hers to bear. Mom left without another word. The following week was chaos. Vanessa hired a lawyer. 3 days after Thanksgiving, I received a formal letter. Notice of intent to contest estate distribution. I forwarded it to Robert Hastings. He called me an hour later. This is exactly what I expected, Robert said. Her attorney is claiming undue influence and questioning the competency evaluations. It's standard challenge language. It won't go anywhere. How long will this take? 6 months to a year. But Madison, I want to be very clear. You're going to win. The evidence is overwhelming. I'm more concerned about the emotional toll this is taking. He was right to be concerned. Mom stopped speaking to me entirely. Radio silence. My calls went to voicemail. My texts were ignored. Uncle Richard sent me a long email about family unity, and being the bigger person, and considering reconciliation. I replied with 2 sentences, Grandma made her choice for good reasons. I'm honoring her wishes. Aunt Carol tried to mediate. Maybe you could give Vanessa some of the money? Not all of it, but enough to help her feel valued. Grandma already gave Vanessa $140,000, I replied. Vanessa chose to treat it as free money instead of loans. She made her choices. This is the consequence. The legal challenge moved forward. Vanessa's attorney filed paperwork, requested documents, tried to depose me. Robert handled everything. Just forward everything to me, he said. Don't engage directly. Let the legal system work. In January, Vanessa's attorney requested the physician competency evaluations. Robert provided them. Both doctors had documented extensive evaluations of Grandma's mental state, memory, understanding, and decision-making capacity. Patient demonstrates full mental competency, one evaluation read. Understands the nature and consequences of the legal documents being prepared. Shows no signs of confusion, coercion, or diminished capacity. Decision-making appears entirely voluntary and well-reasoned. In February, they requested Robert's contemporaneous notes from the estate planning meetings. He provided 30 pages of detailed notes showing Grandma initiated the conversation, explained her reasoning, and made decisions independently. In March, they tried a new angle, claiming I'd isolated Grandma from Vanessa. Robert responded with phone records showing Vanessa called Grandma an average of 1.2 times per month from 2019 to 2024, while I called 4 to 5 times per week. Vanessa visited approximately twice per year. I visited 2 to 3 times per month. Your client isolated herself, Robert wrote in his response. Madison maintained a loving, consistent relationship. Vanessa maintained minimal contact except when requesting financial assistance. By April, Vanessa's attorney was running out of options. Then came the settlement offer. Client proposes settlement, 60/40th split of estate in Madison's favor. Vanessa receives $1.5 million. Madison receives $2.3 million. All parties release claims and preserve family harmony. I called Robert immediately. They're offering to let me keep 60% of my own estate. It's a last-ditch attempt, Robert said. They know they're losing. They're trying to salvage something. How do you want to respond? With a counteroffer, I said. Vanessa can have her $50,000 inheritance as specified in Grandma's will. In exchange, she releases all claims and admits the estate transfers were legal and valid. Take it or leave it. Robert laughed. That's not really a counteroffer. That's just enforcing the original terms. Exactly. He delivered my response. Vanessa's attorney called it insulting and vindictive. My client is simply enforcing her grandmother's legally executed wishes, Robert replied. If that's insulting, take it up with Eleanor Morrison's estate plan. In May, Vanessa's attorney withdrew from the case. Too expensive, no chance of winning, client couldn't afford to continue. Vanessa tried one last time to contact me directly. A handwritten letter arrived at my apartment. Madison, I know we're not speaking, but I need you to understand something. I'm not fighting this because I'm greedy. I'm fighting because it hurts that Grandma didn't trust me. That she thought so little of me. That she chose you. I know I made mistakes with money. I know I borrowed too much. But I thought she loved me. This proves she didn't. So if you want your victory, you have it. I'm done fighting. But I want you to know, you didn't just win the estate. You destroyed our relationship. Was it worth it? Vanessa. I read the letter 3 times. Then I wrote back. Vanessa, Grandma loved you. She told me that constantly. But love doesn't mean enabling destructive behavior. She loved you enough to say no. To set boundaries. To protect her life's work from being squandered. You're treating this like it was about you versus me. It wasn't. It was about preserving what she built. You proved you couldn't do that. I proved I could. That's not favoritism. That's discernment. I'm sorry you're hurt. But I won't apologize for honoring Grandma's choice. She trusted me with this responsibility. I'm going to fulfill it. Madison. I never heard back. 18 months after that Thanksgiving confrontation, the legal challenges are completely resolved. The estate is mine, free and clear. No restrictions, no claims, no challenges remaining. The current value, $4.1 million. The investments continued growing. The rental property generates steady income. The house in Burlington remains available for family use, though nobody except Aunt Carol has taken me up on that offer. I left the National Park Service 6 months ago. The estate generates enough passive income that I can pursue what I actually love. Environmental conservation work. I'm volunteering with 3 different land trusts, helping preserve wilderness areas across New England. Grandma would love that. Mom and I have limited contact. Holiday cards. Brief, cordial text messages. We're polite strangers now. She made her choice, Vanessa's side, and I made mine. We've both accepted that. Vanessa and Derek divorced 8 months ago. She called it growing apart. I heard from Aunt Carol that Derek couldn't handle Vanessa's spending and the financial stress. The 2 condos were sold at a loss. The Tesla was repossessed. Vanessa moved to a smaller apartment. She's still making good money at her law firm. She'll be fine financially. But the lifestyle she built on debt and expectations of inheritance? That's gone. I don't take pleasure in her struggles. But I don't feel guilty either. These are consequences she created. Last month I established the Eleanor Morrison Environmental Trust. $500,000 from the estate, invested to generate annual grants for wilderness conservation. It's my way of honoring Grandma's legacy beyond just preserving wealth. She'd be so proud of you, Robert Hastings told me when I signed the trust documents. I hope so. My friend Sarah asked me recently if I regret how things went down. Do you wish you'd handled it differently? Maybe told Vanessa privately before that Thanksgiving confrontation? I thought about it. No, I said finally. Vanessa needed to see that her assumptions were wrong. That her entitlement wasn't reality. A private conversation would have just led to the same fight, but without witnesses. At least this way everyone saw the documentation. The evidence. The truth. And the family destruction? Sarah pressed. The family destroyed itself, I said. By always choosing Vanessa. By always assuming I was less than. By never questioning their own biases. I didn't destroy anything. I just refused to participate in the fiction anymore. I still have Grandma's letter. The one Robert read at that Thanksgiving meeting. I keep it in a frame on my desk. Some days I read it and feel proud. Grandma trusted me with her life's work. She saw something in me that others missed. Other days I read it and feel the weight of responsibility. This estate represents 40 years of her work. Her choices. Her sacrifice. I can't squander it. I won't. Last week I received an unexpected email from Vanessa. Madison, I've been in therapy for 6 months. Working through a lot. My therapist suggested I reach out. Not to fight or argue but to acknowledge something. You were right. I wasn't ready for that inheritance. I would have spent it. All of it. Probably within 5 years, just like your analysis said. Grandma knew that. She tried to teach me but I wouldn't listen. I thought money was about status and proving I was successful. I was wrong. I'm trying to change now. Trying to actually build something that lasts. It's hard. But I'm trying. You don't have to respond to this. I just wanted you to know. V. I stared at that email for a long time. Then I wrote back. Vanessa, I'm glad you're working on yourself. That takes courage. If you want, when you're ready we could talk. Not about the estate, that's settled. But about Grandma. About what she tried to teach both of us. About building things that last. Madison. She replied within an hour. I'd like that. Someday. Thank you. Maybe we'll rebuild a relationship. Maybe we won't. But at least she's finally understanding what Grandma tried to teach her. At the Thanksgiving table, Vanessa declared the $3.2 million estate was legally hers. Until the trust attorney stood up. Until the truth came out. Until everyone saw that Grandma's choice was deliberate, documented, and final. I didn't steal Vanessa's inheritance. Grandma never gave it to her in the first place. She gave it to someone who would protect it. Someone who understood that wealth isn't about showing off. It's about building something that lasts.